Hello and welcome to another edition of Empathy at the Table. This is a special edition. This is DB Bedford, who I've been following for, I want to say about 10 years. He came on the scene for me about 10 years ago. So this is a really special day. And it's his birthday. So I think he needs one of those, man. It's his birthday.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on your birthday, DB Bedford. It's a pleasure having you, brother. It's really my pleasure having you on the show. For our listeners that don't know about you, could you just maybe open up and share a little bit about what it is you do and how you became known as the EI guy?
Thank you so much, man. So my name is DB Bedford, and I am out here in California and mainly in the Bay Area. And what I do is I go into work environments and I help everyone understand the importance of including emotional intelligence in your everyday decision making. And I raise a lot of awareness on workplace incivility and the cost of not addressing those behaviors. I became the EI guy because I was not always emotionally intelligent. I've made some pretty bad decisions coming up that when I reverse engineer my life, I realized that all of my poor decisions happened when I was in my feelings. And when I started looking around at my decisions and the decisions of others, it became pretty clear to me that when emotions are high, logic tends to be the lowest. And I felt compelled and called to be a thought leader in this space and use whatever level of influence that I have to help people make better decisions to get better outcomes and not make the decisions that they have to look back at later and be like, I shouldn't have did that.
Wow, yeah. All right, DB. So let's unpack this straight away because, as I said, I think I came into you came into my kind of arena about 10 years ago when I think you wrote the book I Never Worry, right?
That is correct.
And I just remember thinking as a brother talking about emotional intelligence. I mean, I just got to hear this. I got to hear what he has to say, right? And then you talked about. I've seen some of your interviews, and you. What I love is you also said that from the age of 13 to 23, you weren't that emotionally intelligent guy. You were the other guy. So, can you share with me, right? Who was that other guy, right? And what was the trajectory to becoming who you are today?
Good question. So I grew up in Oakland, California, in this area called Brookfield. And at a young age, soon as I got into this neighborhood, I like to say that you had to be the lion or the gazelle. You know, you just knew right off the back, like if you was gonna be soft, you know what I'm saying, it was gonna cause you problems. And so I feel like I got baked into this mentality that I can't say that I was always proud of, but it became something I needed to protect myself. I mean, the name of the neighborhood is called Brookfield Jungle. You know what I'm saying? And so, and we called ourselves Brookfield Jungle Boys. And so it was just a very active environment where the only way to resolve conflict was through violence. There was no talking it out. If you had a problem with someone, it just automatically meant that you had to fight. And the older that you got, we stopped fighting and then we started shooting and we started doing, like, it just escalated. And so the path from 13 to 23 landed me in jail more times than I'm, proud to admit. The first time I went to jail, I was 13, did about 9 or 10 months, came home, went back again. So I was just back to back to back. And every time in those early days, it was either for selling drugs or doing something that was related to violence, but it was the mentality of how I responded to my emotions. And because no one in school or around had a specific school of thought around the connection of two, then you almost left to figure it out on your own. And so that that part of my life where I made all those bad decisions is because there was no one to guide me and to make me understand. Just because I feel a certain kind of way doesn't mean I have to act on it in that way. And it sounds very logical when you say it out loud, but when you're in the moment, right, you just don't make the best decisions. And so yeah, so that's kind of how, for me, just growing up in a neighborhood, in one of those tough neighborhoods, selling drugs at such a young age, making decisions through conflict and violence, just really just stirred up that first part of my life that gave me an opportunity to look back on to know how I didn't want to move forward to the next part of my life.
And so, when you made that transition, what did you have to leave people behind, or did you bring them with you? Were they able to receive the message and say, "Hey, look what DB's up to. Look where he's going. I need some of that for me." Or did you actually have to make a cut?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So I'd leave them behind at first, and then they eventually, some of them, most people circle back around. There's a part of my story that's very interesting. So I ended up being a 4-time felon, right? Having multiple felonies, but 4 felony convictions that actually stuck. And then I got an opportunity from a judge to work in one of his programs within his courtroom. And over time, because that I did some work, meaning the work was related to being an advocate, he understood the influence that I had in the streets, and he had this program, and he could see me before I could even see myself. He knew that if I would buy into the concept of this program, I could influence other people to participate. In exchange, instead of sending me to prison for 8 years, he gave me this commitment on paper that if I did anything else wrong, I'd go to the prison. I was already in jail for a year. He was willing to let me out to be part of this program and work with this program. The reason why I'm saying that is because after successfully completed, I got my felonies expunged, which means that they basically neutralized them and reversed them, which allowed me to apply to work at the probation department where I was once locked up at. This will tie into your direct question about leaving people behind, which means now that I'm a peace officer, and coming from the streets and becoming a peace officer creates inner conflict from people in the street, even though they know rooted in what we've done together. But now that I'm having a badge, there was a separation because they had a lack of understanding what that level of growth was. It wasn't until I was able to show them that it's better to have people like us on the other side where people started to lighten up and come back around. And then obviously when their folks get into some trouble or they find themselves in trouble, and now I'm the expert on this side, is how they come back around.
Yeah.
So when you say leave people behind, yep, had to take a quantum leap to something totally different than where I come from. They were confused, didn't understand it. But as time goes and we start getting more emotional mature, then they see the value of it, then they circle back around.
What I like about your whole story is that you've been on the other side. You're not afraid of conflict, so you're not using emotional intelligence as as a wall to hide behind because you're afraid of conflict. You're using it as a way to actually walk into conflict situations and deal with that healthy tension and push past it. Right. I think that the skill sets that you're teaching people is not to avoid conflict. Right. It's to be able to handle it in a great way. There's one analogy that you used. I loved it, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to use it.
Let's
where
do
you
it.
said. Human beings should walk around with a sign saying fragile, right?
Yeah.
But not fragile like a flower, but fragile like a bomb, right? I love that. Can you expand on that for us?
Yeah, and so my school of thought around it is that emotions are fragile, right? Like we all harness them, we all have them, but a lot of times we think of, like you said, emotions in kind of a weak form or a soft form, but I just want to put emphasis on, I don't mean fragile like a flower, I mean fragile like a bomb. Like, be mindful how you engage with other individuals because you never know what somebody is going through. You don't know what people are capable of. And you don't know if this moment in time that we're intersecting to each other, you might be the thing that sets that person off. I mean, do you want to be do you want to be a beacon of light or the person that throws shade, right? And I try to get people to understand, but that's what's happening when you are experiencing people on a day-to-day basis, just to be mindful. That's all I'm asking people to pay attention that everybody has emotions and they are fragile and they could be like a flower, but a lot of times they're after bomb, and that's why you see people snap. You see the rude, discourteous behavior, and you be like, whoa, whoa. I mean, we doing all that? It's like, yeah, because you don't know where people are at. So just trying to be considering being intentional, and that's why we using the word civility a lot these days. Like, just be civil, even in
Yeah.
what you consider to be uncivil conversations. Just be civil. Let calmness be your superpower.
Yeah, calmness, you be your superpower. I like that. Yeah, I mean, so a lot of the work I do is around that, right? Is how we use emotional intelligence in negotiations. Because typically, negotiations are heated scenarios, heated situations where one person is trying to get one over on the other. They're advocating just for themselves. They're not really thinking about the other person, and that's potential dynamite, right? For a conversation between people. And one of the things that I always find is there is a big gap between reading a book, watching a video, and actually going out and finding yourself in a high stakes scenario where you really have to tap into your emotions, regulate them, name them, and channel them effectively. Share with me your experience in that area.
Yeah, that's good. So for me, and for the way that I lead in this arena, my first thing I like to do is just remind us that this is an intentional practice, right? So you have to be intentional. And so when I try to encourage others, but mainly with myself, when I wake up every day, the first thing that I do is, first of all, I'm thankful that I'm on a wake up list.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Attitude of gratitude. And once I realize that, then I'm deciding every day. I make the same decision, deciding who am I going to be? How am I going to show up is a better way to frame it. How am I going to show up? And and I want to show up as the best version of myself, and I want the best outcomes in every situation. So with that being said, my goal is to make sure that my mood, my attitude, and my energy is in alignment with this version of me that I've decided to show up with. So if I'm intentional about that, when I step out or I give people access to me, I'm mindful, because those are the three. That's self-awareness to me. Always knowing your mood, your attitude, your energy, and keeping them synchronized, so that when I'm communicating or engaging, I am giving off those type of vibes, soothing vibes, vibes of comfort, you know what I'm saying, vibes of being fluid in our conversation. Like, we want to flow with the river and not fight with the rocks. And so that's the energy you're getting from me. So when outside energy that's not in alignment with that comes, it's like a bright star. Like, I could see it coming a mile away. I know that's not what I want. So I don't do anything to step all the way in it. And then if it makes it over to my side, I'm really surgical about neutralizing it. So the goal is to be, not do, right? So a lot of people get up every day in their human doings. I got to do this, I got to do that, like task driven, which creates, I think, stress for people. I want to be, I'm a human being. I want calmness to be my superpower. If someone crosses over into my lane and they're not that, I'm intentional, back to the magic word, about seeing what I can do to neutralize that. And that's going to be managing the way I respond to whatever they got going on, practicing situational awareness, observation. How much do I need to do engage? I like to say, don't bite the hook, if it's still, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying not to bite the hook. So all of these principles that I teach, or in a constant cycle in my being every single day so that I can get the best outcome of the day. Because I don't know if I'm gonna have a good day or a bad day, but I do know I'll get the best out of the day.
Yeah. So intentionality, neutralizing, calmness is a superpower. I hope the listeners are listening to this, because these are pearls of wisdom just being dropped on a minute by minute basis here. Let's go back to your original book, right? I Never Worry. I think you wrote it in 2015.
Correct.
What was you said at the beginning that it was almost like a calling, right? You felt that you had a calling to give, or to help people learn this. Tell me about the journey from when you hit 23 and you realize there's another way, and then that leap to say, right, this is my life commitment and I'm going to write a book. And this was before ChatGPT was around. So this was like old school, right?
Yeah, that's a trip that is considered, it's just old school now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the journey to the book came, so working for the probation department, I was a trainer at the probation department. So that's where I got the love for training, just training our own department. Then I met a guy named Tony Gaskins who was online. He was pretty successful online, talk about relationships, things of that nature. We ended up connecting in real life, and we ended up partnering where we did a seminar together. And what happened basically, while I was trying to get the word out of emotional intelligence, I basically funded the seminar, brought him on as the headline, and then I put myself on the ticket as the host, so I can get my stuff, because I knew he had a bigger draw than I did, so I basically paid for him to be the headline, put myself on as a host to get the word out. When we're debriefing afterwards, he actually appreciated the emotional intelligence conversation, and I was trying to get more opportunities to bring him out so I could do the same thing. And in that moment, he encouraged me to say that my message was strong enough as is, that I didn't need him. And he gave me the advice. He said, the next thing you need to do is to write a book so you can establish authority in the space. And I didn't know that, I didn't have that game. And so from there, once he gave me that, and this is like true story, it was April 5th, 2015. From the time he said that I got juiced, I picked up my phone, went to Facebook, and told my audience, I'm about to write a book on emotional intelligence, and I'm releasing it on my birthday, right? July 31st. So this is from April to July. So because I wanted to see what people was going to say. And of course they was like, congratulations. I had like 400 comments. So it encouraged me to do it. And so every day after work, I would just write, research. I would look at anybody and everybody who was talking about emotional intelligence. At that time, it wasn't that many. Daniel Goleman, Travis Bradbury, a couple of people, wasn't a lot of people. So I would just see whatever people said that were the same, felt like that was the principles, the facts, and then I would see what type of twist they would put on it, and I would start building my own from there. And so that's how the book came, and then I got my first opportunity to teach at Kaiser that same month that I released the book. And so that just that was like all the confirmation I needed to just move forward. And then so from there, I've been writing and training ever since.
Wow. Congratulations, man. And as I said, I remember when you came on the scene, and it just seemed so different to the discussion around emotional intelligence. And I think you describe emotional intelligence, I've written it down here, is the ability to manage your emotions through a logical lens.
Yeah. Because I feel like everything is good until it's not.
Right.
Like this interview is smooth.
Right.
Because we vibing, right?
Right.
But if I say something off-putting,
right,
or vice versa, can we keep going? Can you still hold that same reverence for me, right? If I color outside the line, right? If the records skip. And so many times I see humans, when it's not in flow, I think like that inner child inside of them just kind of acts up and people throw tantrums or they go to being mean and just, one of the things that I'm very adamant about is showing people to have the next level of understanding. I know you have understanding, but like, can you have that next level of understanding when that thing is said or it's did? Can you take what I like to call a purposeful pause, activate what we like to call a power perspective, and see if you can get the next level of understanding on where that might be coming from before you become aggressive, before you just write this situation off, before you come with all these, before you, I like to say, you Tyler Perry the drama in your head about this, you create this whole scenario. Why not pause? Let's be calm, because you still can say what you need to say, but let's think it through a little bit. And I just see so many times people fumble and they strain relationships, they miss opportunities because you didn't have the ability to not let your emotions overpower your intelligence. So if you can see through a logical lens, if you can channel those emotions through a logical lens, I think that you set yourself up for a winning formula no matter what you're doing.
Definitely. And this idea, of, for me, it excites me, is taking emotions and moving them to the center stage when it comes to, the conversation. I work in companies and in academic institutions, and for maybe the first 10 years, nobody talked about emotions. In fact, I was told in some places, we're executives here. We don't talk about emotions, right?
Right.
And I would always say, well, unless you're a tree, you do emotions, right? I mean, we all do emotions, but which emotions specifically are you talking about? There's 200 plus different emotions. You can be upset and happy at the same time, or you can be frustrated and relaxed. I mean, it's a really complicated mix when you start to talk about emotions, and so. Let's move it into the workplace, right? So when you've explained how we are a complex ball of emotions, and oftentimes this started when we were kids, right? Frameworks we were given when we were kids that we never really had time to upgrade, be intentional about, and so we move into the workplace with other people who are equally as confused and equally as just kind of holding it together. And one of the interviews you gave, you said, emotional intelligence is what happens when your value system gets bucked, when it bumps up against somebody else's, right? And so you can imagine in a team of, 100 people, everyone with value systems completely different, and you meet at the coffee machine and somebody says something that absolutely rubs you the wrong way. Tell me what you're seeing currently now in the workplace. I know you're doing work now on civility. Tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly of what you're seeing now.
Yeah, so with the good, what I'm seeing is, again, when everybody's getting along, when no one's being challenged, right? They're flowing. And that's not why they called me, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to get called when memos go out, right, that people disagree with, when positions get changed or swapped, when grievances get filed. There are things that create this environment. I want to talk a little bit about the beliefs, the values, and the life experiences. I like to call it your internal software. I feel like those three apps are running at all times. And the challenge is that a lot of us are operating on old beliefs, outdated values, and past life experiences. And without that next level of understanding, people don't realize. And so I'll give a very obvious example. So say if someone, say yourself, was raised not to use profanity, right? It's just wasn't something you did. Your family talked down on it. There's a strong belief about not using profanity. But conversely, where I come from, that's how we emphasize. That's how we express ourselves, right? And if in a conversation I started using profanity, every time I use it, it bucks up what? Against an old belief that was downloaded to you, which starts to make you not look at me in such a positive light because it's bucking up against that belief. Now, I don't know this because I'm just being. And so if you're not able to realize that that's a you thing, not a me thing, right? If you don't know how to articulate that that's a you thing, then I've said these things. I thought I just had the best interview ever, and it never gets published because I dropped 3 or 4 cuss words and it's a bug, you know what I mean? And so people miss the mark. So in a workplace, it happens all the time, right? Whether it's some people have really tidy desks, other people don't. The person with the super tidy desk thinks that everybody's desk should be tidy. So they're judging too quickly when they see other people don't do things the way that they do it. Or somebody's in the break room and they washed their cup out and left it in the sink. Somebody else was like, ah, right? And then so it's like, it'd be little thing. The thing about incivility, it is those behaviors that are subtle and overt, right? So it's rude and disrespectful and discourteous behavior that don't necessarily like break a policy. It just rubs people the wrong way. So people are doing things throughout the day that they don't even realize. It's sometimes intentional, sometimes it's not. But what we do know in the end, forward facing, the team is not cohesive. And so the person that's responsible for that team recognizes that they don't have the skill to bring them together. And that's when they look out for folks like us to say, hey, can you come in and give us something? And we come with these well-studied frameworks and principles that we put together to give them something to govern themselves by. And that's why I call my framework the EI Code of Conduct, because my goal is to set a new standard of behavior, adult behavior specifically, for us to be honest that we don't always behave appropriately when we're bothered. But we could point fingers at everybody else about how they behave. When it comes to us, we act like it don't matter. And so just raising that awareness about it. So in the work environment, because people spend so much time at work together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you're in a shared space, you're going to spend a lot of time with people. So you're going to get opportunity to see where people's beliefs, values, and experiences at, but they might not name them. They might not be able to articulate them. They might not be able to communicate it. And so people like to just revert within, don't say nothing, go talk to somebody that they're comfortable with. And then we have all these little pockets of tension going on. And at the end of the day, for every negative experience someone experiences in the workplace, they become counterproductive on an average of 37 minutes. So that has a huge impact on a work environment. If I piss you off, Tony, at work, and then you go talk to your closest person about it, well, while y'all having that conversation, y'all not working.
Yeah.
Right. So people starting to realize the importance of helping people recalibrate so we can have healthy conversations and not take it to heart. And that's where emotional intelligence and promoting civility comes in.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I'm seeing exactly the same thing over here in terms with companies realizing that lack of psychological safety in the team is killing innovation, right? If you can't speak up and say what you really feel in the right way, then everybody silent violence, everybody goes quiet, right? I remember interviewing somebody a few months ago when quiet quitting became a thing, and I remember she said when it happened, she started looking around and said, "Oh, I'm not the only one," She thought she was the only one feeling this way, but when everyone else started quitting, she suddenly realized that she was not the only person feeling that way. And so when with companies, explain to me what the program looks like when you go into a company, because you can't change something in a 2-day workshop or something. Right. What does the program look like?
Yeah, it's a excellent question. I want to throw something into that to end your last conversation. I realize, man, that everybody grows old, but everybody doesn't grow up.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Right. So emotional maturity is what we're really addressing, right? The lack of emotional maturity. The way that we set our system up is we go in, we actually do a half day workshop, and we introduce the principles. There's 11 self-operating principles. And then at the end of the workshop, we have what we call the Civility system, which is a hardback book. And they enroll, and for the next for the next 11 days, they get micro lessons delivered to their phone and email, reinforcing what they learned in the training. Because my study has shown that no matter how great the training is in that day, it's the days after what's the most important. So many people go to training and by Monday they forgot everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, let's get it. And so I create this I teach by experience. So every principle, everything I deliver is experience. It's something that I invite you in to experience so that you understand the value of this principle. And then afterwards, I will use automation to deliver that principle back to you in a micro lesson, 5 minutes or less, meet you where you at, right on your phone or in your email, to reinforce what it is that you learned in the training. And then you have a report that comes out that gives you your personality style. How do you see things more logically, emotionally, a balance of both? And then it's up to the organization if they want to continue. I do sometimes, depending on the organization, I'll come back and do monthly check-ins where basically I'm just here. I'll do a level overview because we locked into the EI code of conduct. Like, I say a lot of things, but at the end of the day, they all come down to these 11 principles I've battle tested over the last 10 years that I know that if you walk through these principles start to finish, you can use them a la carte, you can make a combo out of them, you can go linear with them, but if you are intentional about this, you will respond and think things through the most calmness state. Because, and I'll pause after this, it's so important to realize the power of understanding. If people understood how powerful their thoughts were, they wouldn't just think anything. If they understood how powerful their words were, they wouldn't just say anything. And if they understood the power of their presence, they wouldn't just be anywhere. And so helping people understand that just as a philosophy, like, your thoughts are powerful, so be careful how you're thinking about each other. Your words are powerful. Be careful of what you're saying to each other. And your presence is powerful. So be mindful where you're spending your time at. And whenever I share that with folks, it just becomes an aha to them, because we be out here irresponsible with our energy. I always tell people, you're responsible for how you behave, no matter how you feel.
I'm really encouraged to hear this. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine. He's actually in Oklahoma, and he's a real estate broker. And I was telling him about this, our interview coming up. And he said, that stuff would never work in my company. You know, they're real estate, and it's all about hiding information from everyone else, and just not being honest, not being open. And he said something that made me laugh. He said, "Look, if I want to get something done, I just subdue the people who think the opposite to me, and then I just railroad them and get stuff done." And I immediately inside me, I felt that feeling where, okay, that's what we talked about. It bucked up against my value system, and I thought, okay, so how do I handle this? Do I say, no, you're wrong, and try and convince him that he's wrong? No, I didn't. So I just kind of quietly listened, and I said, well, how's that been working out for you so far? He said, well, I can't complain. I said, well, how do you know you couldn't get even better, right? How do you know you can have the situation that's even better than what you already have? And he said, well, I don't. And that's where the conversation ended. And so when we said that, I thought I would put this question to you as we're coming to the end. I thought I'd put this question to you. What happens when you say to somebody in the most emotionally intelligent way, hey, look, this is how I like to receive information. This is what's going on for me. I'm curious about what's going on for you. But the person that you're speaking to is just a complete narcissist and really has no time for that level of conversation whatsoever.
Yeah, I gracefully bow out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just too many people who are willing to have a
Yeah.
civil conversation than uncivil, and so I understand the law of opposites, right? And so it's a universal law. I mean, if there's an inside, there's an outside. There's up, there's down, there's back, there's forth, which means that there's good, there's bad. And so some people are just going to be on totally opposite of the spectrum of where I'm at. And my level of understanding allows them to be, right? I'm not,
Mm.
because both things can be true, right? So they could have that feeling. And if it's truly working out for them, man, enjoy, because that doesn't work for me, right? And so
Yeah.
I spend my time getting in front of people who are interested, right, in being a better version of themselves, having a better work environment, and just not quite sure how to get it done. You know, there's a saying that says, you know, if you fight for your limited beliefs, you get to keep them. So there you have it.
Nice. On that note, DB, I want to ask you, how can listeners find you? Where's your playground where they can reach you? And what is it that you're working on that's really exciting at the moment?
Great question. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. The web address for me is www.eiconduct.com. So that's where you'll always, you know, see what's happening, what's the latest. What's happening, where we're having fun at now, we are sharing what we like to call the civilityindex.com. So civilityindex.com. And so we are putting this opportunity in front of, because our particular target audience are people who manage teams that want to be able to get them to be more productive and promote civility. So this civility index allows you to take a look at your, what we like to call your emotional climate, to see like what is the vibe of your team. And it ranges from clear skies, right, where everything is all good, to partly cloudy, to a wind advisory, to thunderstorms, or category 5. And so once you see where you're at by your own observation, it's a 21 behavior observation assessment where you just, it's yes or no. If you're working with a team, these questions I ask you, they're like yes or no. What I've determined, I've went and researched the top behaviors that most people, uncivil behaviors that people see in the workplace, and I ask you that question. And the more yeses you have, the more you probably want to have a conversation about bringing emotional intelligence into your environment.
Sounds phenomenal.
Thank you, my
How
brother.
does the EI guy spend his birthday?
Doing podcasts with great brothers like yourself, Tony. Yeah, but
Yeah.
after today, this is the only thing I'm doing for today. I took a walk this morning, went to the gym. I'm here at my headquarters with my business partner. We're debriefing on a couple of things. I have a training in the morning, but after this podcast, I'm gonna go get a pedicure and a manicure and just kind of kick
Yeah.
back and take the rest of the day off. So yeah, I just chill,
You
get
do
centered
your
because I'm
thing.
back at it. Yes, sir.
Do your thing, brother. DB Bedford, I knew it was going to be a pleasure, and it hasn't disappointed. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you
Thank
for
you, brother.
joining us today on Empathy at the Table.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay,
First of
thank you
many.
now. Yeah, for
Peace.
sure, for sure. So I'm going to just pause here because we're going offline now.
There you go.
Yeah.